Right. Okay. So, so that's why Krishna is telling Arjuna that now with full understanding, now we should understand that whatever you're doing is under my instruction, not based on your own mental concoction or speculation or by your own whims. Please understand that you're fighting. This fight is arranged by me, and it's my instruction that you fight. Therefore, if you really follow that, then there's no reactions will incur, right? If you are doing on our own account, then we'll incur reactions. The example Prabhupada gives, and in the second chapter also, Prabhupada has mentioned that for example, a soldier or a military commander or whatever who is in the armed forces, when he goes to fight at the border when there is a war, then under the instruction of the superior, he can kill the opposite party, the enemies, right? He is duty bound to kill, and he doesn't incur any reaction. There's nobody who's going to punish him for that, right? Because he's following the authority. So if you follow authority, whatever you do, you don't incur any reactions. But the moment you start doing things for yourself, so when the soldier comes home for holiday, if he engages in a fight with somebody and kills him, nobody's going to spare him, right? He's going to be charged and then charged with murder, and he will be punished. That is because the second activity is done on your own account. So you have to take responsibility. But if you really surrender yourself to the superior authority, in this particular case, it is Krishna. So Arjuna has to resign himself to Krishna and say that I'm doing it on your behalf, Krishna. But then one has to do it in a very favorable way. That is bhakti, right? Not in a very grudging way. If you do it in a very grudging way, that is not considered bhakti in the first place. So one of the symptoms of bhakti is do it with a favorable attitude, right? What is that verse in the nectar of devotion? Does anybody remember the definition of pure devotion service?
Is it Anukulina?
Anukulena
Yes,
Bhakti.
Anukulina.
yes, correct. So anukulya and pratikula. So pratikul means not favorable. Anukul means favorable. Anukulena Krishna Anushilanam Bhakti Uttama. That is the definition of bhakti. Right? So here, that's why the knowledge is very important, because once we know truly that Krishna is supreme authority, he is the true well-wisher of all the living entities, then we engage with a loving and favorable attitude. And then we completely surrender ourselves to Krishna because we know that he is the one who's taking care of everything. Then there is nothing for us. There is no question of my decision or my speculation or my mental concoctions. Everything is based on Krishna's instruction, and we just follow. So now directly Krishna is telling Arjuna that surrender all your works unto me with full knowledge of me, very important. Then the two things that Krishna mentions, without desires for profit and with no claims to proprietorship. So that Prabhupada explains in detail in the purport. So first is Adhyatma Cheta. Adhyatma Cheta means full understanding. That comes from being Krishna conscious. When you practice Krishna consciousness, devotion service, this understanding naturally comes. Right? The more we engage in service, the more understanding comes. Once Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was, when he had started his Gaudiya Math, there were many people coming, new people were coming. So one person came with a lot of questions, he had a lot of, inquisitiveness, he had a lot of questions. So Bhakti Saraswati Thakur told me that, okay, told him that, why don't you do some service, do some service in the kitchen, go cut the vegetables, and whatever service the devotees ask you to do, just do it. And then after you finish everything, you come back and then we can discuss. So he did all the service very sincerely, everything he did. And he finally, at the end, he came back to Bhakti Saraswati Thakur, and then Bhakti Saraswati Thakur asked him, now ask me, what are your questions? He said, all my questions are answered. So, right, if so, one who does with the service attitude, because he followed the instruction of a superior authority, naturally the purification came, the consciousness became clearer. And because he was also taking association of devotees there while he was doing service, and something he might have heard, and also some doubts might have cleared, whatever it is, that comes through association. So, that is the thing that you have to engage in active devotion service, and that really gives you the spiritual understanding or adhyatma cheta. And then once you have that adhyatma cheta, we are very well, favorably inclined towards Krishna, and we surrender ourselves to him to whatever capacity we have according to our capacity. Then two more things happen, right? What is nirashi? First is nirashi, because there is no expectation, because ultimately we are doing to please Krishna. So where is the question of any expectation? I'm not doing it on my account, right? I'm doing everything to please the Lord. So my only objective or my only aim is to please Krishna. There is no other personal aim. So one naturally becomes nirashi. because he has to act on the order of the master and hence he does not expect any fruitive results. Then the example we have seen before, right? The cashier. So Prabhupada mentioned it here that he may be counting millions of dollars, but he does not claim anything for himself because he knows that it doesn't belong to him. So first is there's no enjoyment mentality, which is expecting fruitive results or nirasha, no asha, nirasha. Then the second thing is no proprietorship or nirmama. So there are two things. One is claiming proprietorship, another thing is enjoying. So there is proprietorship mentality and enjoyership mentality. The two things. Typically in the material world, we carry these two mentalities that we try to control everything. So last session we discussed, I am this body, false ego, right? Because of the false ego, one thinks that everything that he is first of all this body and everything around him is belongs to him. So belongs to him means proprietorship. So we try to control things, thinking that I am the owner of everything. So everything belongs to me. And that can go at a very base level of consciousness to an extreme level, like, Hiranyakashipu or Ravan, who went to the extreme that they thought that they owned the whole planet, the whole, the universe belonged to them. And they naturally, their actions followed, right? Because of this kind of thinking and consciousness. So so two things again. So nirasha, first is we lose the desire to enjoy anything because we know that we're doing for Krishna. And Krishna will take care. Why should we worry? Ultimately, it's Krishna's botheration, right? If we are doing service for him, he is the master, he's the owner. So a servant is never bothered of his maintenance. He knows that the master will take care of it. Right? He just does his job. So you do his service, do your duties, and then leave the rest to Krishna to manage because ultimately he's the best manager. So again, two very important qualities, Nirashi and Nirmama. That is no proprietorship and no enjoyership mentality. So we become free from these two uh, contaminations rather. These are material contaminations which keep us bound to the material world. And then even then, there might be some reluctance to follow, right? After coming out of this Asha and Mama, that is proprietorship, then even if there is any reluctance to execute such a stern order, which is without consideration of so-called kinsmen. So it's in the context of Arjuna, where he didn't want to fight his bodily relations, right? On the opposite side, his cousins, his grandfathers, guru, and all this. He didn't want to fight, but that reluctance should be thrown off because thrown off means one should have the determination still, right? That's why we speak about enthusiasm, confidence, and patience. So these three qualities are very, very important. One has to be enthusiastic, one has to be determined. So even if one has no enjoyership or proprietorship, one still has to push on and do his job to the best of his ability. Because in the material world, the nature is that the modes of material nature will constantly try to overpower us, our consciousness, right? The material contamination is so deep rooted in our own hearts because we have been in the material world for God knows how many births we have taken here. So it's a very deep rooted connection with the material world. So it's not easy to give up. So even though we develop these qualities of nirmama, nirasha, it's always possible that we may fall down and get dragged again. So it's very important. That's why Krishna is telling that we have to shake off any laziness or any ignorance with a determination. That reluctance should be thrown off, which means we should be determined. And that way one may become Vigata Jwara. Vigata Jwara means without feverish mentality or particularly lethargy. Lethargy means laziness, laziness to do. Here, laziness doesn't mean just bodily laziness that I'm sleeping and not doing anything. This laziness is shaking of the ignorance that we have that ultimately I'm doing it for Krishna. That mentality should always be there. That consciousness should always be there. And no, at no point of time we should think that my activities are disconnected from Krishna service. So that constantly we should remember. And there has to be an endeavor on our own part also to make sure that we are constantly checking on ourselves in terms of what we are doing, whether our activities are aligned to Krishna consciousness or not. So that's why it's very important for in our own practical life that sadhana, that's why sadhana is very important, that our sadhana bhakti, that whatever we are practicing, it's not that one day we chant, another day we don't chant, right? Every day we have to chant. Because this material energy is so powerful that constantly it tries to create impediments in our own devotion service because that's the duty of the material energy, right? Because Durga Mata, who's in charge of the material energy, she also wants to test us: are we really determined or not? Because it's like a prison administrator in a jail, right? We have seen jailer. The jailers, they sometimes subject the prisoners to very, very tough work. because they want to really see that this person wants to reform, but is he really very serious to get reformed or not? Sometimes they'll subject us to some difficulties, but that difficulty is just for us to stay focused and stay determined. So everyone, according to his quality and position, has a particular type of work to discharge, and all such duties may be discharged in Krishna consciousness. So we have discussed this many times that whatever our ashrama or varna is, we should not change. Sthane sthitaha. So according to his quality and position, important thing is to be these duties must be discharged in Krishna consciousness, as we have seen in the this verse as well as the previous verse, and that will really lead us to a perfection. So that is a purport of this verse. Any comments or questions on this? Very important verse. This, yeah.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu.
Prabhupada mentioned in the purport, so one has to discharge the duties as if in military discipline.
Yes.
Something
Okay,
is very
this military discipline means actually speaking, Prabhu, in our sadhana bhakti, it's like a military discipline, isn't it? In military, what happens when you go for training? You have to get up very early in the morning, and even if you want to sleep, you are forced to get up. So when we do Mangalarti, because we are not in the spontaneous stage of attraction to Krishna, we have to force ourselves to get up in the morning. So it's like a discipline. Discipline means a strict routine we have to follow. So it is Prabhupada using the word military because initially it becomes extremely difficult when we start this process. But of course, over a period of time, when by Krishna's mercy, by Guru's mercy, it is not as difficult as it used to be before, right? But in the beginning, it's a strict discipline that we have to follow because we're not used to this kind of practice. So
yes,
that's why Krishna is telling that it's like military discipline. You have to really follow the rules and regulations very strictly. So it's from that
yes,
perspective. Yeah.
got it, Prabhu. Thank
Yeah.
you, Prabhu.
Thank you. Anything else?
Swami Prakash Prabhu.
Yes.
Prabhu, two things. One was when we say no expectations and no proprietorship.
Mm.
So, in particular, when we do a service
Mm.
on our now deep down in our heart, we very well know that, like if you say intelligence understands that Krishna is the doer,
Mm.
right? It's only because he gave us opportunity, because of his mercy, we are able to do a service.
Yes.
But if you will see the mind part, it
Yeah.
will always be hankering for appreciation, for looking
Mm.
for something. So, how do you, I don't know how to put it, but then no
Mm.
expectations and no
Yeah.
proprietorship, this doesn't happen on the subtle levels.
Yeah, it is true. So that comes with more and more practice and more service, Mataji. The more we do service, we truly realize that humility comes as a naturally as an outcome of service. So the more we become humble, the more we come out of this kind of mentality that actually I am the one doing it. So the doership mentality and this expectation mentality will slowly come out of it. That comes only by service. There's no theoretical way of coming out of it. That's why Srila Bhakti Saraswati Thakur asked the gentleman also to start engaging in service. It's very important for us to do more and more service. And even while we're doing service, even if this thought comes in a mind that, okay, at the end of this, especially deity dressing, sometimes it happens, right? I've discussed with my wife also. So sometimes we feel that, oh, so nicely we have dressed the Lord. That is fine. That is a natural thing because you're looking at it from the perspective of doing it for the Lord. But still, even you may think that because I did, it's very nice. So even if the thought comes, we should genuinely, in our heart, immediately give the credit to a spiritual master or some senior devotees with whom you have worked. That is what we should try to practice, and never we should think that, okay, it is because ultimately everything is coming from Krishna. The ability to do some service also comes from Krishna. So we should be immediately grateful to Krishna. But then we, in our conditioned state, sometimes we may not be able to see Krishna's hand in everything. So that's why if there is spiritual master and there are other senior Vaishnavas in our presence, immediately you give credit in your heart to that person or to a spiritual master, because ultimately the spiritual master is the one who is engaging you in the service directly to serve Krishna. So that's how we should do, and then humility will come naturally as an outcome of service. Again, this is not something that is artificial. You may externally be very humble, but in the heart you may not be. We know that all of us have that duplicitous attitude, right? Duplicitous tendency, because we are in the material world, right? Conditioning is there, duality is always there. But more and more we do service, humility naturally comes. And humility means we come out of this controllership and enjoyership mentality. So that's the way we should do it, Mataji. Is that okay?
Yeah, Prabhu. One more point.
Hmm.
Regarding the lethargy which is
Hmm.
mentioned here by
Yeah.
Krishna. So, does it actually mean of the mental blockage?
Yes, it could be. It
It could
is.
be
It could be, yes. Because
because
reluctance,
there.
ultimately, anything that we express through our body is controlled by the mind. Right? It's the mind that gives direction to the body or senses to act. So if there is anything there is a reluctance or impediment, ultimately this it could be it's a mental block that is stopping. Yeah, that is true.
Yeah, because many times we see that whenever, like,
Yeah,
example,
that's why Prabhupada
that
uses the
she said,
feverish mentality, right? That's why he uses the word feverish mentality.
feverish mentality. Okay,
Yeah, thank you,
okay. Yes, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
thank you, thank you. All right, nothing else. We can go to the next verse. So the next two verses are important because now Krishna has set the standard for bhakti, and now it's up to us whether anybody wants to follow. Because Krishna says, right, he doesn't force anyone. That the free will is always there. So now Krishna is talking about those who exercise the free will properly in this particular verse, and the next verse he will say those who misuse the free will. Having understood this, right? Yeah. So let's look at this verse.
Krishna Prabhuji, Swam Prakash Prabhuji, Hare Krishna.
Yes,
I have one question, Prabhuji, to clarify.
yes,
Previous
yes.
was, I mean, in translation, it explains that I mean, without desires for profit, right?
Mm.
So just I'm contemplating about this. For
Mm.
example, Arjuna is trying to fight. Now, so he doesn't want to fight because he's going to lose all the king's men. That's why he cannot enjoy the profit after the
Mm.
war, right?
Mm.
So when you look at, of course, we cannot compare, and of course,
Mm. Mm.
Krishna is trying to explain to establish dharma, you have to fight. So
Yes.
because, and here is, see, Prabhuji, I mean, we are in a material life, right? So I mean, honestly, whatever we do, first thing is we do it for profit. Yeah,
Mm.
any business or anything.
Correct.
I mean, when you look at material perspective, but again, what I understand from yesterday's Devakan class, yes, we should. For example, you want to claim the ladder, you should claim, but again, the profit, whatever it comes, you should offer to Krishna.
Mm.
Is that correct understanding, or I mean,
Yes, absolutely,
is,
Prabhu.
yeah,
See, naturally, when we do some material activities, profit is natural byproduct of that, right?
yes, Prabhuji.
The important thing Krishna is telling, don't be attached only to the profit. Profit will come because we have this body, we have our families to take care of. Without money, we cannot take care. That's the reality in Kali Yuga, right? I cannot say that if I'm doing a business, whatever I'm paying for the raw materials, I will charge the same price for the final goods also. How will you survive in such a
Mm,
business? There has to be some margin, there has to be profit. But our outlook or our main goal is not to maximize our profit. It's basically to maximize our service to Krishna. That should be our objective as a devotee, as a practicing devotee. So profits will come. That is natural. But our
mm,
goal is not profit maximization. Our goal is to service maximization. Or how do I please Krishna? Whatever I'm getting, yes, I have to keep because Prabhupada gave a standard that even that we cannot really follow. I mean, strictly because the Prabhupada says 50% of your earnings must be used in service of Krishna. But of course, that's a general guideline. How one does it is different because, for example, if you're doing deity worship at home, whatever money you're spending is also for Krishna service. Whatever you're doing in the center is also for Krishna service. When you go for yatra, that is all. They're also spending money, but that also you're trying to progress in your Krishna consciousness. And then donations you give here and there, everything comes under that 50%, right? It's not just giving only to the temple. No, whatever activities you're engaging in, or wherever you're spending money that helps you to remember Krishna more or progress in Krishna consciousness, that is considered using your earnings in the right way. But of course, 50% you have to still keep for your maintenance and emergencies and for the family, everything.
mm,
So as long as we generally follow this principle that I am not trying to maximize my profit, that doesn't mean that in the business you don't want to grow, right? Naturally, you want to grow because ultimately your objective is what? That if I get more, I can use more for Krishna. Not that if I
mm.
get more, I can enjoy more. That should not be the objective. That's what Krishna is
Yes,
telling here.
yes, Prabhuji,
A
it's
very
clear. Yeah.
important point. Yeah, thanks for raising that.
Yes, thank you, Prabhuji. Yes.
Thank you. Okay. Uh, Anandini Madhavi Mataji, you want to chant this verse?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
ये मे मतम् इदं नित्यम् अनुतिष्ठन्ति मानवः श्रद्धावन्तो मुच्यन्ति अपि कर्मभिः. Synonyms: A. Those who may my matam injunctions, idam these, nityam as an eternal function, anutistanti execute regularly, manavaha human beings, shraddhavanta with faith and devotion, anusyantaha without envy, mujyanti become free, they all of them api even karma bihi from the bondage of the law of fruitive actions. Translation: those persons who execute their duties according to my injunctions and who follow the teachings faithfully without envy become free from the bondage of fruitive actions. Purport: the injunction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna is the essence of all Vedic wisdom and therefore is eternally true without exception. As the Vedas are eternal, so this truth of Krishna consciousness is also eternal. One should have firm faith in this injunction without envying the Lord. There are many philosophers who write the comments on Bhagavad Gita but have no faith in Krishna. They will never be liberated from the bondage of fruitive action. But an ordinary man with firm faith in the eternal injunctions of the Lord, even though unable to execute such orders, becomes liberated from the bondage of the law of karma. In the beginning of the Krishna consciousness, one may not fully discharge the injunctions of the Lord, but because one is not resentful of his principle and works sincerely without consideration of defeat and hopefulness, he will surely be promoted to the stage of pure Krishna consciousness. Hare Krishna,
Thank you,
Prabhu.
Balaji. Thank you. So very, very important verse again. So following from the previous verse, Krishna has given that Mai Sarvani Karmani. Sannyasa Adhyatma Chetasa Nirashe Nirmamo Bhutva Yuddhasva Vigata Jura. So that instruction, one who follows with faith, that's what Krishna is telling here. Those persons who execute the duties according to my injunctions, means the previous verse, and who follow this teaching faithfully without envy, become free from the bondage of fruitive actions. So again, it's a choice that whether we want to follow or not follow. Arjuna could have very well said that, okay, Krishna, whatever you're saying is understand, but sorry, I cannot fight. Well, he could have chosen that option, but he's a devotee, so naturally he understands Krishna, and then for a moment, even though he may be momentarily disillusioned, still by Krishna's mercy, by the knowledge of Krishna, by association of Krishna, he came out of the illusion, right? And then he fought. Of course, he was never in illusion, but then he's just representing one of the conditioned souls in the material world who constantly is battling the material energy. So here, one who understands Krishna's nature and his instructions will try to follow with faith. And where there is faith, there is no envy. Where there is no faith, is because of envy. All right. The next verse will be clear. But here, Krishna is talking about those who follow his teaching faithfully without envy. The result is natural because we become free. Because we are following Krishna's instructions, we become free from the material bondage. And then material bondage means bondage of fruitive actions, because material activities means naturally there is always this mentality to enjoy and claim proprietorship. That is the nature of material activities, right? So we become free from, so nirashi and nirmamo. We become that. So we come out of that material entanglement, and then naturally the outcome is that we become spiritually free or liberated. So here Krishna, Prabhupada is trying to explain that ultimately Krishna's whatever he says is eternally truth, because all the Vedas, as we have seen before, it comes from him, right? That cycle of sacrifice we've seen. Annat bhavanti bhutani, the food grains come from rain comes from sacrifice comes from activities come from prescribed in the Vedas, and Vedas directly come from Supreme Personality of Godhead. So everything comes from Krishna, this eternally the truth. So naturally, we should have firm faith in this injunction, right? That whatever Krishna is saying, even though materially we may not be able to understand, or mentally we may not be able to understand instruction, because we are using our limited capacity to think. We don't really understand certain things beyond our focus or beyond our capacity. But we should have the faith that whatever Krishna is saying, that's why knowledge, and coming back to the point of knowledge, is very important. We should have full understanding that Krishna as a Supreme Personality of Godhead is transcendental, his nature is transcendental, his body is transcendental, his activities are transcendental, his qualities, pastimes, names, forms, everything is transcendental. So when we do deity worship also, we should have full understanding that this form of Krishna, even though made of material nature, because the material nature is coming from Krishna, Krishna has the potency to make any material form spiritual, because ultimately both material matter and spirit come from Krishna, right? So it's Krishna's omnipotency, his potency, he can do anything. He can convert anything from spirit to matter or otherwise, right? So we should have this firm faith that whatever Krishna is saying is the eternal truth, and therefore Krishna consciousness is the right way for us to become free from this material entanglement. Whereas those who don't have, like many people, out of the speculation, they may write, that before Prabhupada wrote Bhagavad Gita, there were so many translation and editions of Bhagavad Gita, but after reading them, nobody really became a devotee. They use it for to prove their, to prove their intelligence, or at a mental level, they try to say that, okay, Bhagavad Gita has this, Bhagavad Gita has that. Even to the extent that Mahatma Gandhi also, he wrote his own realization of Bhagavad Gita. But then, because there was no devotion in the heart, so he misinterpreted and he understood it differently. Because Krishna says very clearly in Bhagavad Gita, right? Those who have this envious attitude, those who don't have faith, they will never understand the message. In the fourth chapter, you will see Krishna is telling Arjuna that I am telling this message to you because you are my dear friend and a devotee. So only devotees can truly understand the real message of Bhagavad Gita. Others may get some peripheral, it's like Prabhupada gives example of a bottle of honey. If you lick from outside, maybe some droplets are there that you may lick, but unless you open the bottle and take the honey from inside, you will not be able to taste real honey, right? So these philosophers or mental speculators actually licking the bottle of honey from outside, because they don't have truth, they don't have understanding, they don't have faith in the instructions of Bhagavad Gita. But a simple person, Prabhupada writes, an ordinary person with firm faith, even if he's incapacitated to execute such orders, as we have seen before, right? Our mentality or bhav is what Krishna sees. He has the right attitude, but he may be limited by circumstances or material situations or by his karma or he may have some bodily dysfunctions, whatever it is. He may not be able to execute, but he has the willingness and the faith to execute. Even that person gets liberated, is what Prabhupada says. A very encouraging statement. Even such a person who not able to execute gets liberated from the bondage of karma. So that is our objective, right? What is the use of all the scholarly degrees and so many degrees we add to our name? Ultimately, if you're not able to come out of the bondage of karma, what is the use of that? Because next life, again, we have to start from scratch. Again, start ABC, nursery, school, and everything. So whatever degrees you have got in this life are complete waste in that sense, right? Because you're not using that to get liberated. You're using that to only get further bounded in this material world. And the last statement is very important. Beginning of Krishna consciousness, one may not fully discharge, but because one is not resentful, please remember this always. We are not resentful or we are not unfavorable to the practice of Krishna consciousness. Extremely important for us to be favorable. We should have favorable attitude even if we are not able to execute. So many people sometimes we think that, oh, I'm not able to do this service. I don't have the capacity to do this service. Sometimes you always think, right, oh, this service comes to me. How will I do it? So we may feel that, genuinely I'm not able to do, but then I'm not resentful. So sometimes we say, okay, I will assist this devotee in doing it. Or I may not lead the service, but I will assist this devotee. That is also good because we are still favorable. We're not running away from the service. We are still favorable. The attitude is favorable. So even if you're not able to execute it perfectly, even that favorable attitude helps us to progress in Krishna consciousness. That's very important. That's why the attitude is extremely important quality of a devotee. That how the devotion, Prabhupada mentions in many places, devotional attitude. Devotional attitude. You'll see as you read the purports, Prabhupada uses the word devotional attitude. So that's extremely important. Having the right attitude and everything else will follow naturally, right? Because if your attitude is nice, Krishna reciprocates, he gives the empowerment, he gives the understanding. Krishna says in 10th chapter, right? Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam. Satata yukta means one who is engaged. It doesn't say that one who is perfected his activity. Satata yukta, so one who is engaged in my service, I give the understanding by which you can come to me. So one who has a favorable attitude, even if not able to execute the instructions properly, still there is hope for perfection, and there is and without consideration of defeat and hopelessness. I'm not worried about defeat because ultimately everything is dependent on Krishna. Then Prabhupada says he will surely be promoted to the stage of pure Krishna consciousness. Such an encouraging statement. And it applies to all of us, and it is very, very important for all of us that we develop that favorable attitude. So that's the purport of this verse. Any comments or questions?
Prabhuji, what does envying the Lord means here? I mean,
Okay. So see, the reason why we're in the material world, because we wanted to enjoy like Krishna, not with Krishna, right? So we've discussed in the past, right, that why are we in the material world? Of course, there is no perfect answer that, when we fell down, we don't know when we fell down and what happened and all that. But in principle, we were all with Krishna and we fell down, right? That's a underlying principle. And because why we fell down? Because we wanted to enjoy not with Krishna, but separately from Krishna. And that separate enjoyment is envy. Because in the material world also, if you see somebody, we envy that I also want to get the same thing or more than that person. It's not that I want to cooperate, be friendly with him. See, envy means we lose the friendly attitude. We cannot see a person as a friend anymore, right? That's the root cause of, not cause, root manifestation of envy. When envy is there, we cannot see the person in a nice way. Always we see in a negative sense, and we try to hate that person, and harbor the negative feelings. The same feelings we had with Krishna. That's why we fell down. So it's very important that we understand that by nature, every living entity is envious of Krishna. But of course, we have forgotten that completely, that why we fell down. But that's a root cause why we fell down to the material world. So that is already there, deep rooted in our heart. Is that okay, Prabhu?
yes, Prabhuji.
Yeah, thank you. Anything else? Okay. Let's look at the next verse, which is talking about the person who doesn't follow with faith. What happens to him? Amit Prabhu, maybe you can chant this verse.
ये तो एतात अभ्यास्युयन्तो नानुतिष्यन्ति मे मतम् सर्वज्ञानविमूढात्मस्तान् विद्धि नास्तान् अचेतसः.
So
Synonym.
ye tva etat abhyasuyanto nanu tishtanti me matam sarvajnana vimudham stan viddhi nashtan achetasa. Maybe try one more time, Prabhu, to chant.
ये त्व एतात अभ्यास्युयन्तो नानुतिष्यन्ति मे मतम्
Tishtanti, tishtanti, nanu tishtanti,
नानुतिष्ठन्ति मे मातम् सर्वज्ञानविमूढात्मस्तान् विद्धि नास्तान् अचेताशः.
achetasa. Okay.
चेतसः. Synonyms. Ye, those. Tu, however, etat, this. Abhyasum, abhyasumanta, out of envy, na, do not. Anutishanti, regularly perform. Me, my. Matam, injunction. Sarvagyana, in all sorts of knowledge. Vimudan, perfectly befooled. Tan, they are. Vidhi, know it well. Nashtan, all ruined. Achetasaha, without Krishna consciousness. Translation. But those who, out of envy, disregard these teachings and do not follow them regularly are to be considered bereft of all knowledge, befooled, and ruined in their endeavors for perfection. Purport. The flaw of not being Krishna conscious is clearly stated herein. As there is punishment for disobedience to the order of the Supreme Executive Head, so there is certainly punishment for disobedience to the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. A disobedient person, however great he may be, is ignorant of his own self and of the Supreme Brahman, Paramatma, and the personality of Godhead due to a vacant heart. Therefore, there is no hope of perfection of life for him. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. So now Krishna talks about somebody who, after hearing the instructions, doesn't follow because he still has envy in the heart. So out of envy, so we have seen that, as Amit Prabhu asked, right? The envy starts with envy of Krishna. And then when we fall in the material world, we naturally become envious of living entities because we carry the same mentality. And the material world is, Prabhupada writes many places, that is full of competition. And competition means there is envy, right? That's why there is competition, because the deep-rooted envy is there. So those out of envy, so when there is enviousness, we will not follow a person, right? We will, as I said, we will not see the person as somebody loving. That loving attitude doesn't develop out of envy. And then naturally we disregard the teachings and we don't follow them. So what happens as a result of this? Krishna says that we become bereft of all knowledge, befooled, and ruined the endeavors of perfection. So when I was reading this, when Prabhu was reading this, I was remembering Duryodhan, right? Duryodhan, we have seen in Mahabharata, he was not willing to follow anything that, first of all, Vidura spoke to him so much. He gave him so much guidance. His father was, of course, he was not only physically blind, but also spiritually blind. So he didn't give him any knowledge. But all the other elders like Bhishma, Kripacharya, Dronacharya, such great personalities, Vidura himself is an emblem of dharma. He's Yamaraj himself who's come as dharma, as Vidura. He's, despite all their instructions of great personalities, he was completely bereft of all knowledge. He was completely befooled because what was his objective is his understanding was that everything ultimately belongs to me. This kingdom belongs to me. So I should try to get this kingdom at any cost. And because I am in that illusion, that nirash, there is no nirashi, there is no nirmama. Everything is mama and there is full of kama and asha. So he was completely bereft of all true understanding and he was befooled and ruined. Ultimately, what happened? He lost his life and all the other brothers also died. He lost everything. So his example is for us to see and learn from and not follow. Please don't follow. We should not follow an example. But sometimes negative examples also important because in the material world, we find people with this kind of mentality. What to speak of others? Even we ourselves were in this mentality in the beginning, and slowly we came out of it. And hopefully now we are in the situation where we don't envy Krishna anymore, right? We cannot think of envying Krishna anymore because we truly love Krishna. We understand Krishna is supreme. Where is the question of envying? Envy means at least there is a comparison that somebody like you is there and then you can envy that person. But Krishna is supreme personality of God. What can we envy of Krishna? But because we completely didn't have this understanding when we came in the material world, again, ignorance, right? Ignorance is the cause of all sinful tendencies, sinful activities, all these anarthas like envy, pride, ignorance, anger, karma, everything. All the anarthas, and the main root of that is ignorance. And envy is also one of them, right? But slowly, when we are becoming knowledgeable of Krishna, we come out of this anarthas and bad qualities. But people, as we said, people have different mentalities and takes time. Somebody who accepts with faith and executes, as we said, Prabhupada mentioned, right? Not resentful or a favorable, but not everybody is like that. Some people are still unfavorable. So that unfavorable attitude comes out of envy because we still not come out of that factor that, okay, I cannot accept this fact because that envy is in the heart. So the result is Krishna says very clearly, we are bereft of all knowledge, befooled and ruined in the endeavors for perfection. So we can never achieve perfection. And Prabhupada starts by saying not being Krishna conscious. The result of all this is being not Krishna conscious. And if there is disobedience to the order of any in normal terms in the material world, we don't follow the rules, we are punished. Right? So similarly, a disobedient person is punished. And the punishment is this actually. We become bereft of all knowledge, befooled. And what is the result of this? That we continue to rot in the material world. We never come out of this material world. And that's what happens to materialists, that they think that they are independent of everything. They can control their destiny. And they just work hard, earn money, enjoy, and then that's the way to live in this material world. That's the philosophy that people generally follow, right? Eat, drink, and be merry, right? Merry and enjoy. That's it. Because this understanding is that this life is the only life that they have. So enjoy to the full maximum, and then after this, anyway, we all become, there's no existence after this. That's a common understanding in the material world, right? There is this atheistic Kapila, Prabhupada quotes many places, who gave this philosophy that bhasmi bhutasya dehasya kim punaragamano bhavet. So anyway, this body is going to become bhasma at the end of this ash. When we are burnt, our body is burnt, it becomes ash. So bhasmi bhutasya dehasya, and then we're not going to come back again. Kim punaragamano bhavet. We're not going to come back again to the material world. So enjoy. He says, enjoy to the maximum. How much ever we want to enjoy, enjoy. And he says, Ranam Kritva Gritam Pibet. That even if you're not able to afford something, take loan. And this philosophy of in the material world of this, loans, borrowing, everything came from this philosophy, I think. That if you can't afford, yes, take EMI, take money, borrow money. They just pay back in small installments, buy and borrow. And so Ranam Gritva Gritam Pibet. If you cannot afford to eat ghee, Ghritam is ghee. It doesn't matter. Take run or borrow money and then buy ghee and eat. So that's his philosophy. Runam Gritva Gritam Pabet, because Bhasmi Bhuta se deha se. This body is going to become Bhasma very soon. So until that happens, enjoy it to the maximum. So that is a philosophy generally in the material world. And this is coming from complete ignorance. And because we are completely illusioned by material energy. And what happens the result? If you follow this philosophy, we come back and we don't even know whether we'll get a human body after this kind of life, sinful life. We should not expect a human body again. We will go back to the animal species. And to come back to the human form again after going through the evolution in the human in the animal species. So Prabhupada says you become an insect, an amoeba, and then insect, and then you become some reptile, then you become a bird, then you become animal. Then among animals you reach the highest among the like tigers or lion or whatever. And then slowly you get a human body after that. And that human body also may not be, it may be in a very, very uncultured way, right? You get some like tribal, something like that, not to demean them, but in an uncultured family you may be born where you will not get any spiritual values. Then you slowly progress from that, and then by Krishna's mercy, you come to you're born in a family where at least the material situation is good. There is facility, that you don't have to worry about earning money and all that. Then you can really focus on what is a real. Then you start inquiring about spiritual aspects. Who am I? Where am I going? These kind of things happen. Start with inquiry start, and then you start to find out where can I get these answers. Then slowly you come in touch with devotees. So just imagine the process. It takes so long that having lost this human body because of sinful activities like this, then you go back again in the cycle of evolution. And by the time you get the human bodies, it's going to take many, many, many births. So why to waste so much time, right? So rather we come out of this envy by faithfully following the instructions of Krishna and then perfecting our life. So that's what Krishna is trying to tell in these two verses. Any comments on this or any questions? Okay. Let's go to the next one.
Prabhuji, Hare Krishna.
Yeah.
Just two things. I mean, just last few verses to share what I just think about it is always talks about false ego and envy. These two.
Sorry, bro. Sorry.
False ego and envy. False ego.
False ego and envy. Yeah.
And this has been repeated actually last few
Yes.
verses. I just trying to understand how these two are connected. Means false ego is, as what I understand, is I'm a proprietor. I mean, I own, this is mine, this is, that's what it is about false ego. And envy is when we compare with others. For example, he's better than me, he has a better house, better car, and this is envy. So just trying to connect.
Yeah, Prabhu, ultimately everything, the root cause is false ego only, Prabhu. Because false ego means I consider myself the body. So with the moment I think myself the body, I start comparing everything from the bodily level. Right? This person has more possessions, so his possessions are more than my possessions. So again, the comparison at the bodily level, right? We don't see that, okay, he's also a soul, I am also a soul, both of us are trying to serve Krishna. We never see like that, right? False ego means we're completely cut off from the understanding of Krishna. So we see each of us as independent bodies, individual bodies, and everything is connected to the bodily platform. So I compare, okay, I have so much possessions, this person has so much possession. If he has more, I become envious, right? Or if somebody has less, I look down upon that person, right? So this everything is centered around the body. So false ego becomes the reason or the cause of all the ignorance, everything, all the things that follow after that, the anarthas, that kama, krodha, moha, matsarya, this envy, everything comes, the root cause of that is false ego only, Prabhu. So that's how we can connect.
Yeah, okay, Prabhu. Just trying to connect.
No,
Which comes first is both. I think.
Yeah,
Ultimately,
ultimately,
first
the
and which
reason,
follows false ego. That's trying to
false ego is
understand.
the reason why we came down to the material world, right? But of course, the root, ultimately, the envy, everything manifests from that. Everything else manifests from that false ego.
False ego.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because if we had the real ego, if we were in real ego, we will never have envy because we will understand that I am servant of Krishna. I had to serve Krishna. And you see everyone also as servants of Krishna. So there is a common point that is Krishna and everything connected to Krishna. But the moment that real ego is gone, we have false ego taking over. And false ego means I consider myself independent of Krishna. I have no connection, I have no understanding of Krishna. Then everything else like envy, pride, everything comes because everything is connected to the body. the false temporary material body.
Okay, as long as we can keep a check false ego, then envy also it is in
Yeah,
control.
yeah, yeah. But it's not so easy to give up false ego
Hmm.
because it has got so many coverings. So naturally, Prabhupada explains that to come to giving up false ego, we have to start practicing to give up these qualities like envy, because false ego is not something that is tangible or something that can be seen, right? Or can be experienced. But envy, we can very well explain what envy means, or
Hmm.
pride, or kama, or lob, or krodha, and all this. This we can tangibly explain. So the root is false ego, but to come to that giving up false ego, we have to slowly give up these manifested qualities. So false ego manifests itself in envy, in other bad qualities. So we have to really practice our Krishna consciousness such a way that we are coming out of these bad qualities, and ultimately we come to the platform of real ego, where we give up false ego. So that's the
Okay.
process. That's
So
why
this address the
it's
root cause of false ego, Prabhu. Yeah.
that's why it's a gradual process. There's no magic here or no miracle.
Okay, bro. Just trying to contemplate. Thank you,
No,
Prabhu.
that's good, Prabhu. Yeah, thank you.
There
Okay.
was just one question,
Yeah.
as we were discussing that how the soul progresses from the lower animals and all those.
Mm-hmm.
So, but why the pure devotees like Indradumna Maharaj went into the Gajendra's body, or like Bharat Maharaj took the birth as a deer? So, can you
Yeah.
please explain on this?
Yeah, I think, see, Mother, generally speaking, this is the evolution that Prabhupada explains, that you evolve from lower species to higher species. But of course, there are always exceptions based on one's consciousness. So once you are in the human form, it depends on what kind of consciousness to cultivate. Now, Bharat Maharaj's example is just to teach us that even if you're engaging in devotion service, what did he do? That he went to a solitary place. He wanted to solitarily practice devotional service on his own. He did not have association, right? Although I mean, he thought, I mean, of course, he was personally very capable and a very good devotee, but he thought that he will be able to practice on his own and eventually attain perfection. So we as practicing devotees should never think that we should go to solitary place, practice our bhakti and perfect ourselves. We should always be in the association. So to teach that point, Bharat Maharaj went and took, and because he got attached to the deer, and there was no other association, spiritual association for him to be protected from, he naturally had to fall down, in the sense he took birth again as a deer. But that is a very, very specific teaching in Bhagavatam, that even if you are engaging in devotional service, make sure that you're surrounded by good associations, because always we want to protect ourselves from material association. Not that by performing devotional service we are completely free from material association. No, no, this is a constant endeavor, because as I said, material energy is constantly trying to battle and test us. So we should be always in spiritual association. When devotees used to see Prabhupada praying to deities, they would ask Prabhupada, what are you praying? Prabhupada would say very humbly that I'm always praying that I'm never fall into material association. So that's a genuine mood of a devotee, that he thinks that he doesn't have any capacity on his own. He has to always rely on the spiritual energy, on Krishna to really protect himself. So that is the example of Bharat Maharaj. Indrajumna Maharaj was because he committed offense. So even if you are in the human body, you are practicing devotional service, very important not to commit offenses against devotees. So those things will decide, Mataji, what happens to us. So in case of devotees, Krishna, it doesn't subject them normally to the cycle of this karma evolution, that a devotee generally will not take a birth again in a animal species and come up again. For devotees, Krishna does it slightly differently. Sometimes if he doesn't get perfection, he may give some temporary punishment. It's like a father punishing a child versus a police punishing a criminal. Not like that. So father sometimes chastises the child, or the parents chastise the child just for the child's upliftment. So it's a temporary, a disturbance in his progression, that he had to take the body of an elephant because he offended that Rishi, and then Rishi said that because of your ignorance, you're behaving like an elephant, so you take birth as an elephant. But those are rather exceptions, and for devotees, Krishna interferes personally, and yet is depending on our own behavior. So it depends on our behavior. Krishna will give us some temporary punishment, So instead of going straight to Krishna, we may fall down somewhere. But then our consciousness, please remember, always is protected by Krishna, because whatever we engage in devotional service is a permanent stock in our consciousness. Is it okay,
Thank you.
Mataji?
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay. Anil Prabhu and Paramshil Mataji, you want to read this verse?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare
Yes,
Krishna Mataji.
Prabhuji. Yes, Prabhuji. I will read. Text 33. Sadrasham चेष्टते सदृशं चेष्टते स्वस्याः ज्ञानवान् अपि प्रकृतिं यन्ति भूतानि निग्रह किं करिष्यति. Sadrasham, accordingly, cheshtate, tries, swasyaha, by his own, prakrte, modes of nature, jnanavan, learned, api, although, prakrtim, nature, yanti, undergo, bhutani, all living entities, nigraha, repression, kim, what, karishyati, can do. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.
Yeah, Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu.
Even a man of knowledge acts accordingly to his own nature, for everyone follows the nature he has acquired from the three modes. What can repression accomplish? Purport. Unless one is situated on the transcendental platform of Krishna consciousness, he can't get free from the influence of the modes of the material nature. And as it is confirmed by the Lord in the 7th chapter 7.14, therefore, even for the most highly educated person on the mundane plane, it is impossible to get out of the entanglement of the Maya simply by theoretical knowledge or by separating the soul from the body. There are many so called spiritualists who outwardly pose as advanced in the science but inwardly uh, or privately are completely under the particular modes of the nature which they are unable to surpass. Academically, one may be very learned, but because of this long association with the material nature, he is in bondage. Krishna consciousness helps one to get out of the material entanglement, even though one may be engaged in his prescribed duties in terms of material existence. Therefore, without being duly in fully in Krishna consciousness, one should not give up his occupational duties. No, no one should suddenly give up his prescribed duties and become the so called yogi or transcendentalist artificially. It is better to be situated in one's position and to try to attain Krishna consciousness under superior training. Thus, one may be freed from the clutches of Krishna's Maya. Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhu. So now, after having given the understanding of Bhakti Yoga, 30th verse, and then two two sides he explained, right? One who follow with faith and one who don't follow because of envy. Now Krishna is trying to explain that how does a person, gradually come to the point of faithfully following Krishna's instructions? Because it is, as we discussed, that it is a journey for everyone, right? We understand, but then everybody has their conditionings, their own, qualities of material nature, influence of the different modes. Some may be still in ignorance, some may be in passion. Very few of us are in the mode of goodness, right? Generally speaking, material world means mostly governed by the modes of passion and ignorance. So how does one gradually come to the platform of goodness and then accept with faith the instructions? Because one has to be in the mode of goodness to truly understand what the knowledge is and then with full faith execute their instruction. Until that time, it's a struggle. But then even if those who are in the mode of ignorance and passion, as we have seen, even if you have favorable attitude somehow or the other, even that person, there is hope because he can progress, because he's not resentful of the principle, right? He's not giving up the principle, or he's not completely rejecting the principle, right? So that is what Krishna is now going to tell in the next few verses. How does one execute his duties, understanding this or with the right consciousness, so that he gradually progresses in his journey to Krishna? So even a man of knowledge acts according to his own nature. For everyone follows up nature is acquired from the three modes. So this we have understood clearly that in the material world, everything is governed by the modes of nature. So whatever nature we follow actually is coming from the modes, governed by the modes. So either we are in the mode of ignorance, passion, or goodness. So what can repression? So repression means artificially trying to do something else is not going to help. We should go with the flow, as they say, right? We should go with the flow. Whatever nature is, we try to continue that. So again, sthane sitaha. Don't try to artificially change a situation. Just go with the flow, but then start developing the favorable attitude towards Krishna, because attitude is everything. Because even if you're not able to physically do anything, if you have the right attitude, there is hope for us. So Prabhupada starts saying that unless one is situated on a transcendental platform, he cannot get free. So this you have seen, right? In 7th chapter, you'll see that Krishna will say, Devi Esha Gunamayi Mama Maya Duratya, that this material nature is extremely difficult to transcend because it is controlled by Durga Mata. It's like a fortress. Durga means fortress. It's very difficult to break that fortress and cross the fortress. But one who is surrendered to Krishna can easily cross. So unless and until we come to the platform of surrender, surrender means we have to have faith. Again, go back to the 31st verse. With faith, if we follow the Krishna's instructions, then it's like surrender, and then we cross over the influence of material nature. So until that time, even if we may be the most highly educated or scholarly person, that person cannot get out of the entanglement of Maya by theoretical knowledge. There has to be practical surrender, or even by separating soul from the body. So this point is very important because Prabhupada is subtly talking about the impersonalists or Mayavadis. Because Mayavadis understand that they are not this body, they are a soul. But even if you're on the Mayavadi platform, as we have seen, that one cannot get truly liberated, right? Because he goes and gets stuck in the impersonal Brahman, then but he falls down to the material world because there is no activity there in Brahman. And soul means always active. So for want of activity, the soul falls down again in the material world and then continues his progression. So just by being the most highly educated or even by impersonal understanding, one cannot get liberated. There has to be surrender to Krishna as a supreme personality of God and understanding that he's a person, supreme person. And then Prabhupada explains that, there are so many spiritualists who pose. So this you have seen, like Mithyachara, earlier we saw in the sixth verse of this chapter. One should not be a pretender, right? Pretender means outwardly you pose, but inwardly you have different thing altogether. So we should not be like that. We should be very straightforward. So academically, again, Prabhupada says because of his long association with material, he's in bondage, right? So material bondage is what causes, or it's preventing us from going to Krishna. So anything that is keeping us in the material platform, even if it's highly recommended in the material world, is still not going to help us. Only Krishna consciousness can help us to come out of the material entanglement, even though one may be engaged in prescribed duties in terms of material existence, which is fine, which is our situation, right? Therefore, without being Krishna conscious, one should not give up his occupational duties. This we have seen many times, many places. Prabhupada has brought up this point that don't artificially try to give up your duties, but stay in your prescribed duties and become Krishna conscious. Sthani sita and become a so-called yogi. So don't give up. It's better to be situated in one's position. So there are many points you see that Prabhupada repeats many times. That's repetition is good because it kind of emphasizes again and again to us, because our mind constantly needs this medicine. When the doctor prescribes the medicine, he gives a course like 5 days you have to take, like antibiotics or whatever, right? He doesn't generally give a medicine, okay, just one day you take. So usually he gives like period of 1 week or 2 weeks. So every day you have to take the medicine. So similarly here, the message has to be emphasized again and again and again, because again, please remember, we are conditioned so badly in the material world that it's very natural for us to assume that we should be in this material world, not go back to the spiritual world. Or we don't even have faith that there is something called spiritual world because of our material conditioning. So the more and more we feed the spiritual nourishment to the soul, slowly then the soul will realize its true position, come out of the false ego, but that's a very gradual process. And it can only happen, as Prabhupada emphatically says, that only by Krishna consciousness can this soul come out of the material conditioning and attain its true nature. And then we become free from the material energy of Krishna. Okay, so here is a kind of emphasis again by Krishna that how do we come to the platform of surrendering ourselves, or that aspiration that we should be in bhakti? How do we come to that highest platform? So Krishna gives a very psychologically, Krishna is trying to establish that your destination is here. The bhakti is a goal, pure devotional service is a goal, And we are here. How do we get to this point? Right? So that's a journey that Krishna is giving according to our own nature. So explaining that, uh, scientifically explains that everything is controlled by the modes of material nature, and we have to slowly come out of the control of the modes through practice of Krishna consciousness and not try to artificially stop or change our position. So that's the message from here. So any comments or questions, anybody?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji,
Yes.
Just to share my understanding, anyway, as long as we are born with, we as a nature, we have these qualities of three modes of material. How do we say that?
Yes. So remember that three dolls, right? Krishna is, we are the dolls. We are dancing in the material world according to Krishna's wish, but he uses three strings. So the three strings are like three modes of nature. So the modes of nature are controlling our activities, and either we are in goodness, passion, or ignorance, depending on that. And sometimes mix of modes also is there. It's not clearly goodness or passion or ignorance. There is always these modes are competing. Prabhupada writes later. Krishna will explain that the modes are constantly competing, and at sometimes one mode is dominant, at times other mode is dominant. But it's a very complex web that is created by the modes of material nature.
Yes.
But as long as we're in the material world, we are controlled by the modes. That is for sure.
Modes, actually, as we are born to have this. As long as we are born, then in other words, how do we come out of these modes by?
Yeah. Because if you look at the creation of the material world, right, as we discussed, so the false ego is the first thing to come out. And then from pradhana, from the unmanifested state of matter to a manifested state of matter, Krishna actually injects the three modes of material nature into the unmanifested stage, and then he adds time. Then there is activity, agitation in the matter, and then from that comes false ego. Then from that comes intelligence, mind. Then the subtle body comes first of all, and then the gross body manifests. The senses, the material elements, everything manifests. So that is a cycle of creation. So the root of it is false ego, but then the modes are the agents that actually activate all of these things. Without the influence of modes, see, the first principle is ignorance. As we said, without ignorance, one cannot have false ego, right? Because the moment there is knowledge, we understand true ego. We know a real ego. So the first ingredient that comes in the material world is mode of ignorance. And that mode of ignorance causes the false ego to manifest first. And then the intelligence comes, then mind, but everything is influenced by the ignorance first. And then there is a mix of passion, there is a mix of goodness. Then those different varieties will start manifesting. So the varieties that you see are all a manifestation of the modes of material nature in the mixture, the combination. So Prabhupada writes a permutation and combination of the modes. It manifests everything in the material world.
Yes, so nicely explained. Just trying to connect with false ego and envy. I explained nicely.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Anything else? Anyone? So some of these points you may find repeated, but as we said, it's important for us to re-emphasize again and again this point.
Prakash,
Harish.
sorry, Prabhu. One question I had. Here, when Krishna is mentioning nature, everyone follows the nature he has acquired.
Yeah.
Is it like the swabhav which we are talking about?
Yes, swabhav. But this swabhav is more the body, because we have attained a body, that body also has a particular nature, right? Because each of us have a body and then we have our own conditioning. That nature means conditioning, and the conditioning comes from the modes of material nature.
Okay, so again, a sub question into that. So if it is about swabhav, so there is we have a natural abilities gifted by Lord to us. Like somebody is very good in creativity, or somebody is very good in handling something or something like that. So then as it was the last line which is there, that we have to be situated in one's position and then try to attain Krishna consciousness. Then sometimes it happens that we do services only as per above swabhav. We just don't want to shift. I'm comfortable doing something because I'm loving it.
Correct.
Many times we don't do the services. I know that ये मेरे स्वभाव से विपरीत है. ये मैं सेवा कर ही नहीं सकते. So how do we work out on this?
Yeah. So as we said, Mataji, that it actually it's okay to do certain services which you are inclined to because of your natural abilities in that. But the important thing is to do the service the right mode. So if you do the service the right mode, the things, all of these conditionings, we slowly come out of it eventually, right? We come out of this conditioning because we are doing service, and as we said, you develop some humility. When you develop humility, you start seeing things that actually I am not doing it. It's not my abilities that is the reason for my service. It's actually Krishna's mercy, the Guru's mercy. So when you have that understanding, slowly you start picking up things because you know that I am not the one. It's not my abilities that is helping me to do the service. It is really Krishna's mercy. So you start seeing that, okay, this service has come even though I am not able to do, or it's not in my natural ability to do. But this service, you start seeing that this service also coming from Krishna, also coming from Guru. He is empowering me. Ultimately, we see that the Guru empowers me. Or the devotees around me, they are empowering me. Sometimes the Guru does not speak directly, but he can speak to the devotees. Or Krishna, definitely, we don't have the capacity to hear Krishna's voice because of our impurities. But Krishna often speaks through his devotees. So sometimes you may be thinking, oh, yeah, many times you might have experienced that some difficulties there, but you're not able to open up to somebody. And when you go and pray to Krishna, Krishna of course understands our heart, but still Krishna wants us to express in front of him. So it's very important that when you go in front of Jagannath, don't just stand. Okay, of course, admire his beauty and everything, but pray always. Pray and whatever is in your heart. Sorry, those who are on mute can go on mute, please. Yeah, whatever is in your heart, just go and express in front of the Lord. Because ultimately the Lord is a person. Otherwise, we also become like impersonalists. No? We don't express anything. We just, okay, Krishna, you're in the heart. You understand what is in my heart. Yes, he understands. But Krishna always waits for us to take the first step. Because he never interferes in our, he has that minute independence given, right? But he respects that always. So if we take the first step and express our heart, then you will definitely see that Krishna reciprocates. Something will happen from somewhere. The devotee will come and speak to you, oh, Prabhu, Mataji, I think this thing is there, that thing is there, or something. Some solution will come, or some clarity will come. And I'm sure everybody has experienced it. We have experienced it day in and day out. But we just have to be a little conscious, and consciously try to express our heart towards Krishna. That is the meaning of prayers. That's why Bhagavatam is full of prayers. Prayers means expressing our thoughts, expressing our feelings in front of Krishna, glorifying Him, expressing our own inabilities. That, ultimately I have nothing in front of you, Krishna. You have to empower me. So when you do services, even if you're doing something that to your liking, slowly you'll develop the attitude that I'll become favorable to any service. I see everything is coming from Krishna, the source of everything. So any opportunity comes is also coming from Krishna. And with that, if you are become submissive to that service, the empowerment automatically comes. It's no more dependent on one's abilities. So it's okay to start like this because you're still in that stage of practicing. But Mataji, that slowly you start becoming that broad-minded nature. You start doing services because we see everything is coming from Krishna. Krishna is empowering me. The devotees are empowering me. My Guru is empowering me. So there's nothing that technically I cannot do, right? Everything, as long as I have attitude to do, it will happen by Krishna's mercy. So that's how you see everything, man. Is that okay?
Yes, thank you so much, Ruchi. Yes.
Thank you. Okay. Let's try to cover one more verse.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes. Tell me.
Prabhuji, my query may be out of context, but looks like it may be correlated to this last para of this.
Okay.
See, we have ashramas, 4 ashramas. Now we are in Grihastha ashram.
Yes.
So when we say these 4 ashramas, is it applicable for Grihastha? And second question will be,
Sorry, your question was not clear, Prabhu. Yes, four ashramas are there. What is
yeah,
the
so
question?
like we are in Grihastha ashram, correct?
Yeah,
So how that ashrama, is it for Grihastha or it is for brahmacharis? This is the first thing. Second thing, how to correlate this ashrama with the last para, that is no one should suddenly give up his prescribed duties and become so-called yogi. It is better to be situated in one position and try to attain Krishna under superior training.
Yeah.
Thus, one may be freed from the clutches of Krishna Maya.
Yes.
So how to, there are these 2 questions. Can you just...
Yeah. So essentially, Prabhu, when we think of performing duties, so there is the social duties. We have our whatever work we are doing. So that whatever work we are doing is based on varna. So depending on qualities, like some of us have Brahmanical work, some of us have Kshatriya-like work, administration, some of us like Vaishya-like work who do business, trading and all that. And some of us, and majority of course in Kali Yuga, are like Shudra, like Krishna says, Kalau Shudra Sambhava. And Kali Yuga generally mostly are Shudras because everybody's working, right? We are all working under some superior. So that working mentality means is Shudra. So that is a Varna. So depending on our proclivities, we are either in Brahmanical, Kshatriya, Vaishya, or mostly all of us are in Shudra level platform. We are working, employment. Ashrama is different. Ashrama is more spiritual progression, right? Ashrama is you start with brahmachari, then you come to grahastha, then vanaprastha, and then sannyasa. It depends on the age. One's age in the so usually if you divide 100 years, 25 years in brahmachari, 25 years grahastha, 25 vanaprastha, and 25 the last ashram sannyas. That's how typically it's divided. So what Krishna is telling or what Prabhupada is saying here is that in whichever varna or whichever ashrama you are, try to execute Krishna consciousness staying in the same ashrama or varna. Don't try to artificially change because we may think that I may be able to better perform this devotional service if I change my varna or change my ashrama. But one should not do it artificially. Wait for it to naturally come. But important thing is execute whatever you wherever you are, try to execute from that platform. Is that okay, Prabhu?
Yeah, okay. Yes, yes.
Yeah. So if you're a brahmachari, like children, our children are mostly in the brahmachari ashram. They should not suddenly think that I have to give up my studies and many people are inspired. They suddenly join the temple. It's okay. I mean, once you have that really maturity that you really think you want to do that, yes, fine. But wait for that maturity to gradually develop. It's not should not be something that is forced on somebody, or one should not immaturely decide that I have to do this or do that. Many times you have seen that people have joined and then gone back, right? So that kind of disturbance should not be there in the family or for one's own self. Yeah, that's what Prabhupada is trying to explain, that as long as possible, stay in the ashrama. Krishna will give us the understanding and knowledge that when we should do what. So the action should be guided by Krishna or his representative spiritual master. That's why Prabhupada writes superior training. Everything should be under the guidance of a superior.
Okay, okay. Got it.
Thank you. Okay. Let's Rajshri Mataji, you want to chant this verse? You there, Mataji? Hare Krishna. Okay, Sakhi Rasa Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, yes.
इंद्रिया इंद्रिया से इंद्रिया सा अर्थे राग द्वेषौ व्यवसायित
Vyavastito,
व्यवसाय
Vyavastito.
व्यवस्थितौ तयो न वासम अगच्छेत् तौ
तौ हि अस्य
तौ हि हस्य परिपन्थिनो.
So this is a long word, right? You should look at this. Indriyasya, indriya asya arthe. So indriyasya arthe raga dvesho vyavastitau. Tayorna vashamagachet.
तयोर्न वशमागच्छतौ
Agachet. Agachet.
तयोर्न
vashamagachet. Vashamagachet. Tau hi asya paripantino.
तौ हि अस्य परिपन्थितौ.
Yeah. So try to break the words if you are finding difficulty in chanting the long words.
Sure.
You can break it and then, yeah, chant. Okay, Mataji.
Synonyms. Indriyasya, of the senses. Indriyasya arthe, in the sense objects. Raga, attachment. Dvesau, also detachment. Vyavasayithitau, put under regulations. Tayo, of them. Na, never. Vasam, control. Agachit, one should come. Tau, those. He, certainly. Asya, his. Paripantino, stumbling blocks. Translation and purport by His Grace Srila Prabhupada ki jai. There are principles to regulate attachment and aversion pertaining to the senses and their objects. One should not come under the control of such attachment and aversion because they are the stumbling blocks on the path of self realization. Those who are in Krishna consciousness are naturally reluctant to engage in material sense gratification. But those who are not in such consciousness should follow the rules and regulations of the revealed scriptures. Unrestricted sense enjoyment is the cause of material engagement, but one who follows the rules and regulations of the revealed scriptures does not become entangled by the sense objects. For example, sex enjoyment is a necessity for the conditioned soul, and the sex enjoyment is allowed under the license of marriage ties. According to scriptural injunctions, one is forbidden to engage in sex relationships with any women other than one's wife. All other women are to be considered as one's mother. But in spite of such injunctions, a man is still inclined to have sex relationships with other women. These propensities are to be curbed, otherwise, they will be stumbling blocks on the path of self realization. As long as the material body is there, the necessities of the material. I lost it. I'm
Sorry,
sorry.
this one here. As long as the material.
As long as the material body is there, the necessities of the material body are allowed, but under rules and regulations. And yet, we should not rely upon the control of such allowances. One has to follow those rules and regulations unattached to them because practice of sense gratification under regulations may also lead one to go astray as much as there is always a chance of an accident even on the royal roads. Although they may be very carefully maintained, no one can guarantee that there will be no danger even on the safest road. The sense enjoyment spirit has been current a very long time owing to material association. The sense enjoyment spirit has been current a very long time owing to material association. Therefore, in spite of regulated sense enjoyment, there is every chance of falling down. Therefore, any attachment for regulated sense enjoyment must be avoided by all means. But attachment to Krishna consciousness or acting always in the loving service of Krishna detaches one from all kinds of sensory activities. Therefore, no one should try to be detached from Krishna consciousness at any stage of life. The whole purpose of detachment from all kinds of sense attachment is ultimately to become situated on the platform of Krishna consciousness.
Thank you, Mataji. So here
Hare
Krishna is, yeah.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Sorry, Prabhuji, I was not
No,
here.
it's okay, Mataji, no problem.
Hare Krishna. Next one I can tell,
I
Prabhuji.
think this will be the last verse for today, but
Oh, okay.
next week we can, next
Yes,
session.
yes. Thank you so much,
Oh,
Prabhuji. Sorry,
problem.
Hare Krishna.
So here Krishna is telling that raga dvesha, raga means attachment and dvesha means aversion, that hatred, right? So we should be free of this raga and dvesha both, because both can be stumbling blocks on the path of self-realization. If you're too attached to something or you're too averse to something. So as we said, always Krishna consciousness, we have to tread the balanced life. They gave the example of going into Vrindavan, right? The Loi Bazaar. How we have to always steer clear of any stumbling blocks here or some disturbance here, some vehicles coming from here, people coming from here. So we should always steer clear and tread the middle path. So always we must be balanced, which means not too much of attachment, no aversion also at the same time. We don't hate anything. We are not too attached to anything. Because this balanced life is very important, because the moment there is hatred or attachment, both can catch us anytime. Because hatred towards something means we become, unnecessarily we get distracted from the path of self-realization. We get caught up into all this negative things. Here, attachment also we get caught in negative things because we are too much focused on that thing. We miss the goal. Our goal is to go to Krishna. So if you're driving from here to Kuala Lumpur, it takes 3.5, 4 hours if you go, and the roads are very clear. But sometimes on the side you will find something, right? There is some shelter or something to drink or to eat. We may just stop, and then something we see there, there's a play area or some nice place, we go there. Our objective is to go to KL, Kuala Lumpur, and we unnecessarily get distracted. Or something's there, maybe this example is more for attachment. So we should not get distracted from the path. We should be very progressive on the path of self-realization, because that's why Krishna has set the goal for us. That your goal is Mahi Sarvani Karmani Sanyasya Adhyatma Chetasa, the 30th verse. That is our aspiration. We have to come to that point of surrender, selfless surrender to Krishna. And on this journey, we should be very careful not to get distracted. That's why Krishna is speaking this verse, that by nature, we should understand the material world. First of all, we should be very clear. We should accept that the material world means activities of senses, there is material enjoyment. So attachment, aversion, all these things are natural byproducts of material life. That's why Prabhupada explains in his purport also, it talks about one of the greatest fall down reasons for fall down is, this attachment to women. But there is a regulation. You are allowed to marry and have enjoyment only with your wife or husband or wife, right? Not outside of marriage. So no enjoyment outside of the marriage. Even that enjoyment also is restricted because Prabhupada writes very clearly that only for the purpose of procreation, only for the purpose of bringing up children. That's just a tool for that purpose. But of course, one may come to that platform gradually, right? That's why there is varna and ashrama, and there is practice of spiritual consciousness, which cleanses our mind and our intelligence and makes us focused on what is our ultimate goal. And this very important verse Prabhupada writes here, mentions here, all other women are to be considered as one's mother. The extremely important principle. There is a verse by Chanakya that matravat paradareshu paradraveshu lostravat atmavat sarvabhuteshu ya pashati sapandita. And Prabhupada insisted that in the education system, actually only this has to be taught in the schools. This should be the basis of teaching the children. And also, once you educate the children, naturally they will grow up with that qualities. So three things Chanakya Pandit says. Matravat paradareshu, except your wife, every other woman is considered to be a mother. But of course, one person, when very younger, like daughter's age or the same age, so they should be like sister, daughter, or mother. So these are the three relations which are very pure. So apart from a wife, every other woman should be seen in this light. Either elderly ladies as mother, same age ladies as your sister, and younger ladies as your daughter, like your daughter. So these relationships are very pure. There cannot be any contamination here, right? So only your wife is separate from this, and that's it. Everybody else is considered like effectively like a mother, right? So that's very important. Second thing is paradravyeshu lostravat, which means we don't hanker after others' possessions. Paradravyeshu lostravat, or we should consider others' possession as just stone or pebbles. It's very insignificant. So that's how we should be looking at others' possessions. And third is atmavat sarva bhuteshu, which means we should see everyone as we see ourselves. In Bible also there is a saying, do unto those as you would want others to do unto you. The same principle, right? Our Vedic principles are the root of everything. So Chanakya Pandit says, so these three things Prabhupada says should be the standard of education in our education system. But we know that unfortunately that's not the case, right? So that's why it's very important to instill these values at very young age, so that when they grow up, they will have the natural good qualities that will come as a result of that. So Prabhupada is cautioning us here that material attachments are natural in this material world. So one should not be caught into that. But at the same time, the other side, many times what happens when we practice devotional service, we are too caught up in the regulative principles. Oh, no meat eating, all this is good, definitely. But we should not try to be too attached to this. That is fine. But sometimes chanting, our sadhana, deity worship, it should not become like a ritual. There should be a loving feeling, the spirit that makes a thing spiritual. Not otherwise, it just becomes a ritual. If you remove the word spirit from spiritual, it becomes a ritual, right? So it should not become a ritual. It should not go down to the level of just I'm doing it because I have to follow the rules. I just tick the box. Okay, I've done the chanting today morning. I've done deity worship. I've done reading, hearing. Finished. It should not be looked at as just rules and regulations. Rules and regulations are there, but too much attachment to the rules and regulations also is not good. That's why Prabhupada says that, example of accident on the royal roads. The royal roads are highly regulated and everything is controlled, but still there can be accident. Similarly, if you are too attached to just following the principles, we don't accept the essence behind that it is for me to develop Krishna consciousness or to develop love for Krishna and develop a sincere attitude to do service for Krishna. That is the ultimate purpose. The regulations are just helping us. So the regulations are just a via medium for us to achieve that goal. The regulations are not goals in themselves. They are not objectives in themselves. They're just a means to go to the end. So we should not be too much caught up into that. But at the same time, we should not ignore them also. So that's why the balanced attitude is very important. So later in Nectar of Instruction, you will see this verse that Niyama Agraha. Niyama Agraha means there are two meanings Prabhupada writes there. Niyama Agraha, Niyama Agraha. So the use of word if it is attached to Niyama, it becomes Niyama Agraha. Or if it is attached to Agraha, it becomes Agraha. So the two meanings are Niyama Agraha means to attach to regulatory principles, and Niyama Agraha means you develop aversion to regulatory principles. Both are dangerous on the path of self-realization. So we should not be attached, should not be averse. We should have a very balanced attitude, because we should see these rules and regulations as a means to achieve the ultimate end, which is to develop love for Krishna, to develop my Krishna consciousness, to do sincere service for Krishna. So as long as that objective is very clear, we should see them only as factors or tools to help us progress in the journey of Krishna consciousness. So that point Krishna is mentioning here, very, very important point. So I think that is what the summary is of this particular verse. Any comments or questions here? So Prabhupada, that's why right, sir, attachment to Krishna is very important. If you lose this focus, then we'll caught up into either attachments or aversions. So our goal must be very clear.
So Prakash,
Yes.
I don't remember the which words, but I think last class you had said when the three modes of material nature was going on. So that time description of three modes of material was going on. That time you said that in the whole day you go through
Yes.
all the three.
Correct.
Right? For the whole day you go
Yes.
through all the three modes.
Yes.
Can you just repeat, because I think that goes here.
Yeah. So as we said, early morning when you get up during Brahma Muhurta, generally we are in the mode of goodness. And that's why that is the best time to engage in bhakti. So whatever activities you like, Mangalarti, chanting, reading, is very, very conducive, because that atmosphere is spiritually surcharged, because the demonic vibrations are very low during that time. Most of the demonic like tendencies are sleeping, right? Most of the people are sleeping during that time. That's why we are recommended to get up early in the morning and make use of that 2 hours of Brahma Muhurta to really engage. So we are in the mode of goodness. Actually, we transcend the mode of goodness that time. From the mode of goodness, we jump to the transcendental platform. But during the day, because we are conditioned by material nature, we start our work, activities, everything. Then the passion takes over during the day, that we are very passionate about our work, whatever work we're doing, very passionate. But then as the day progresses towards the end, we become so tired, because material energy means it drags our energy, it saps our energy. So naturally, we become very dull and very tired towards the end of the day, which is a symptom of mode of ignorance. That's why it's recommended that's why Prabhupada created a system of whole day program, that morning you do something, evening also you have to do something. You can't just leave it like that. That's why when your deities at home, we come back, offer some worship, simple worship, whatever we can do. Can be a simple arti, like Gaur Arti or something. If you have Gaur Nita, you can do Gaur Arti, or you can just sing Hare Krishna mantra. That's also fine. But do some engagement, something to connect to yourself to Krishna. So that again you come back to the mode of goodness before you sleep, because sleep is definitely the mode of ignorance. But Prabhupada says that you can spiritualize your sleep also by remembering Krishna before you go to bed. So Prabhupada recommends you read Krishna book during the night, or at least do something, hear something about Krishna. Or if you're doing deity worship, or if you can do some reading or hearing before going to bed, that is good, because then throughout the period of sleep also, it is kind of spiritualized, that your mind is kind of fixed to Krishna somehow or the other. So that's how we battle with this Maya or modes. Is it okay, Mataji?
Yes, Prabhu. Yes, thank you so much.
I think we'll have to close, because it's already 15 minutes past 10. If there is any question on this, we can quickly discuss in the next session, and then we can move on. Is that okay? But we'll have to stop now. I think I don't want to hold this evening. We have programs also in the center. So thank you so much for your patience and sharing your realizations, and openly asking your questions. So thank you so much. Krishna willing, let's try to wrap up in the next session. Otherwise, Srinand Prabhu will kill me. Taken far too long, I think.
Hare
Okay, Hare Krishna.
Hare
Dandavat
Krishna.
pranam.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Dandavat
Hare
pranam. Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.